Good evening, friends. Welcome to our garden. Welcome to our homestead. This is one of my favorite times. I love this. It is time to harvest potatoes. We're going to talk about when to harvest your potatoes, how to cure your potatoes, and how to store your potatoes for long term. Let's get going. So to start, we planted a lot of potatoes this year. There are a lot of different varieties. Some are ready and some are not. We plant our potatoes using the trench and hilling method. So initially we dig a 6-inch trench and we put our seed potatoes in there. We cover it with dirt flat across the ground. Once those potatoes have sprouted and come up, we will hill it up to an additional 6 inches of dirt on top of those sprouts. There's been a lot of experimentation by a lot of people, but this method seems to be the most common, and this one is what we always use and it works for us. We're going to show you live how our method worked and what the results are. Now, I did a full video in the past about harvesting potatoes and exactly when to do it for different varieties. If you're interested in that video, click this link up here. But for today, the simplest way of knowing when they are ready to harvest is if the stalks of the plants are yellowing out, laying over, and starting to die. You can see in front of me that these Yukon Golds in this row are ready to harvest. But behind it here, you can tell where we've planted some other varieties. And the stalks on these are still green and sending energy down to growing the potatoes. So I'm not going to harvest those today. Another solid way to know when to harvest is to pay attention to the maturity dates of your particular variety of potato. For us, our Yukon Golds are usually mature in 90 days. And we're sitting at 95 days right now for these Yukon Golds. But of course, there is a range for a lot of potato plants, so just pay attention and see how they are doing in the garden. We're also going to show you something very surprising with our potatoes this year, and it's the first time it's ever happened. Now, for harvesting, I use a very special tool, and let me show you what that is. Let me grab it right here. Yes, my hands. This is the easiest way to harvest potatoes and not damage them. If you hill up your potatoes, your soil is probably going to be soft enough where you can just dig the potatoes out with your hands. Some people will use a garden fork, but I don't like to do that anymore because I've just stabbed too many potatoes in the past, and that totally ruins them for long-term storage. Okay, let's get to it. Now, if you are in an area where you have a lot of fire ants like we do here in Texas, you might want a pair of gloves. Looking down here right now, I do see ants, but I'm not sure if they are fire ants or not. But I'll tell you, I'm gonna find out really quick if they are. Look at that, first big potato. Beautiful. And it is so easy to just get these out. Now you can, if you want, try to manipulate and pull up the plant like that. Well, they're not fire ants because I'm not getting bit yet. Well, that's one plant. I've got 3 big ones, a couple of medium-sized ones, and some small ones. Not terrible. Okay, let me show you what we got from our one row of Yukon Gold. I had 16 plants that I just pulled up. It's not the best harvest that I've ever had, and I got maybe 5 or 6 potatoes on each plant. And compared to harvest in the past, that's pretty decent. The best I've ever gotten is about 10 or 11 potatoes per plant. And the worst I've ever gotten is 1 or 2 potatoes per plant, and that was when my soil was just not very good at all. So soil nutrition, of course, is really important for all your plants, including your potatoes. But this is the very first year I've had potato scab on my potatoes. I've never seen this before here, and I don't know why it suddenly arrived, but that's with any disease in the garden, right? So potatoes with potato scab are just fine to eat. So we're gonna eat these, but we will need to eat these first, and we cannot store these. Now, sometimes the potatoes with potato scab can rot in the ground pretty quickly. So I am really glad that I got to these now. I will probably just skin these and make some mashed potatoes, and then hopefully I'll have enough to freeze dry. But now let's get these inside the house and start the curing process. And we will see you in a few seconds. All right, we've got our first row, our Yukon Gold potatoes here in the house. Now it is time to cure them. And you need to cure these before you store them so that the skin toughens up and any little abrasions on them kind of heal over before you put them away. And if there is any little damage like this from a grub, that will heal. But they need to be cured, and they need to be cured in a humid, dark, cool place. Now some people say warm place, but the temperature for the curing process is between 45 and some say 60. But down here in Texas, that's a little difficult to do. So I'll go up to room temperature about 75 degrees. And it's a real challenge to get the humidity correct for curing, and that is about 90 to 95% relative humidity. Not a lot of us are going to be able to do that. So down here in the south, if you're holding your temperatures at 65, 70 degrees to cure these, you're more than likely going to have an air conditioning system on, which takes the humidity out of the air. So if you want, you can use a little humidifier in the room that you are curing your potatoes in. For us, it's our spare bedroom. Now it's ideal to lay these potatoes out on a piece of mesh, but we just don't have the ability to do that in this space. So a piece of cardboard on the floor will work just fine. So when laying these out, we're gonna let these cure for about 7 days to up to 2 weeks. And remember, it is extremely important that you do not take the dirt off of the outside of these. You can take big clumps of dirt off, that's no problem, but do not wash your potatoes at all. And do your best to space them out so it gets air all the way around the potato. And damage like this, skin damage from me picking it yesterday, this is going to heal over during the curing process, and I won't have to worry about it rotting. So after you're done curing your potatoes, you need to store them. And for us, we've done it several different ways. Let me talk about the conditions for storing them first. One, you need high humidity, you need a dark place, and it needs to be cool. Now cool is relative and it's going to depend on where you live, of course, and that will determine how long your potatoes will last. But we're looking for a temperature around 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Our humidity is naturally higher, although we are in an air-conditioned space, which takes some of the humidity out of the air. But relatively, it is still fairly humid in the home. You're going to have to find the best place for you to be able to store yours. I know for those in the north, it gets very, very dry indoors in the wintertime. So you have to take all those into consideration when storing your potatoes, and those conditions will let them last the longest. So for us, we've gotten some seed potatoes to last up to a year. If you know anything about potatoes, if they start to lose moisture and the humidity is not high enough where you're storing them, they will shrink and shrivel up. If you've ever put potatoes underneath your sink in a dark cupboard, then you kind of know what that looks like when they come out. They start sprouting eyes and they start to shrivel up. They're fighting to survive because they want to grow another plant. One way you can help with that is to starve them of light, so wrapping them in newspaper will help, and keeping them separated from one another and not touching one another. These seed potatoes were extra, and right now they're past their prime, so they need to get thrown out. But they were perfectly viable 3 months ago when I was ready to plant them. I just had too many left over for the amount of planting space that I have. But keeping them in a crate like this, in a cool, dark place, wrapped in newspaper, is an awesome way to keep them. But what I found is those crates let a little bit too much light in, even if each one is wrapped in the newspaper. So the other method we use is a box. Just a regular box, and we are going to layer our potatoes in this box. But between each layer, what we're going to do is take some very dry dirt and sprinkle it on top of each layer of potatoes. Now they don't have to be completely covered with the dirt, but you want a little bit of a barrier between them. And make sure on the bottom of your box, you tape the seams. The middle seam is normally taped, but the edges aren't. So tape those up or you're gonna have dirt leaking out of your box. And the last method we use is an in-ground garbage can root cellar. Now here in Texas, that does work if you keep it out of the sun, and it will work for the fall, winter, and spring. Sadly though, in the summertime, it is just too hot at night for the temperatures to remain constant in that root cellar. But for the other portions of the year, it works fantastic. If you haven't seen our build video on that garbage can root cellar, click on this link up here. Now, as I mentioned before, anyone that's got some scab on it, you probably want to use those for your meals coming up soon, because they don't store as well as something that does not have any damage on the exterior skin. Even with that curing process, which we are still going to do for the ones with scab on them, it doesn't really solidify very well in those areas of damage. All right, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments section below. Now go check out this video right here, which is some harvesting truths about potatoes. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time. Bye.